Hello and welcome to Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. I'm never quite sure how my voice is going to turn out at the moment when I start a video. It's still a bit croaky, but I think I should be okay to make it through this one. Let's hope it's not an incredibly long video. What have we got for you today? Well, this puzzle on the screen is called The Sailboat, and it's by Tom One Eye. I think that's how I meant to pronounce that. For some reason, I think when I did one of Tom One Eye's puzzles before, I thought it might be some pun on Tom E or Tom I, but I think it is meant to be Tom One Eye. And the last puzzle I did by Tom One Eye was wonderful. This one also has sort of wowed the testers and has been recommended by the Discord community as well. So it should be fantastic. And it comes with a backstory because the reason this puzzle exists is that Tom One Eye was inspired by a lady called Anne-Marie Rindum, who is from Denmark and who basically won the gold medal in the laser class of sailing in Tokyo. So I think Anne-Marie is now the Olympic champion, the world champion and the European champion. And I believe in doing this, she sort of had a disastrous series of heats, but still was able to sort of trump all before her in the gold medal race. So very well done to Anne-Marie. I think have I got a picture of Anne-Marie? I think I have. I think it's here. There we go. This is Anne-Marie. I think that's may even be the gold medal. So this is who this puzzle is dedicated to. And yeah, we're going to have a look at it in a minute. It's got a very interesting rule set that reminds me of a rule set we looked at ages ago by the young Hong Kong constructor Under Beyond. You may remember that if you've been following the channel for a while. But yeah, very interesting today, and I'll read them out in a second. I want to say thank you to Ray. Ray sent us a knowledge bomb. So I always love any sort of art related to the channel. And look, there is a knowledge bomb. And if you look very carefully, somehow Ray seems to have got, I think it's my face on the bomb there. So yeah, I enjoyed that very much. And just the other thing I wanted to mention is yesterday we tweeted about this, but yesterday was World Mental Health Day, Mental Health Awareness Day. And we get a lot of emails actually on the channel from people who suffer with their mental health, either in the way of anxiety or depression or with insomnia. And they claim that the channel provides some sort of solace. And it's very humbling when we get these emails. And we don't make the videos with this in mind. We don't want to put people to sleep, but apparently we do. Some people get a good night's sleep after watching the videos. So it's just an appeal. If you know anybody who might be suffering with these sorts of things, do let them know about the channel. It's a very easy way of providing some catharsis in the world, and we'd be grateful if you could spread the word. Anything else to mention? Yeah. Tonight, Bubba is you night. If my voice holds out, I'm fully hoping that at 10 o'clock tonight, Mark and I will be attempting this wonderful computer game. I don't know how far we'll get, we shall see, but do join us. We'd love to have your company. Right, all that said and done, let's get on with the sailboat, and I'll read you the rules. We have got, in fact, I think what I meant to do is to get rid of the colours now. I think the colours were just to show you that the cages are basically in the shape of a sailboat. I'm rubbish at looking at pictures in grids, so to me, it looks very approximately like a sailboat, and also sort of like a strange fish with a big fin and a particularly grumpy looking face. But I'm me. Anyway, normal Sudoku rules apply. Each cage forms a 1 width long line. The sum of all centre cells along such a line is double the sum of the 2 cells at the ends of a line. So let's just stop there and check we understand what that means. So let's look at this cage. So this, we have to view it as a line. We take the centre cells of that line, that's those. Let's highlight those in blue. And the sum of these digits is equal to double the sum of those digits, is how I read that. And then there's an example which says, e.g., if the cage was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's actually do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be a legal cage since 2 times 1 plus 6, so 1 plus 6 is 7, 2 times 7 is 14, and I do know that 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 does equal 14. So that's how these cages work. Digits cannot repeat within a cage as well, that's another rule. So that's all of the rules. It's very interesting, and I have no idea what it means, but I shall give it a good go. Do have a go yourselves. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now, what I have no idea about, I can see there's a couple of big cages in there. That is a 7-cell cage. That one looks like it's about 7 cells as well. That is indeed another 7-cell cage. So we have 7-cell cages. Let me just play around with this if you don't mind. So a 7-cell cage, if you had 9 and 8 in the extreme cells, 9 and 8 would add up to 17. I have to multiply that by 2, so that gets to 34. Oh, and then these cells would have to add up to 34. Well, yeah, okay, that's nonsense. Because although it is possible for those cells to add up to 34, it's certainly not possible for them to add up to 34 without repeating a digit, because you'd need 9s and 8s to do it. It's also absolutely impossible for a 7-cell cage to add up to 34 plus another 34, which is 68. Why do I know that's impossible? Well, that's to do with the secret, of course. Now, the secret is something I got to tell you yesterday, and I'm going to tell you it again today because it's something of a knowledge bomb. And that is that the digits 1 to 9, if you add them up, and we know that any box of a Sudoku, any row, or any column will contain all the digits 1 to 9 once each. If you add up those digits, you get 45. So, a 9-cell cage, which according to the rules would have no repeated digits in it, would add up to 45 because it would contain the digits 1 to 9 once each. So it's absolutely impossible for this cage to add up to 68. So we can't put 9s and 8s in the edges of these cages. We have to put a rather lower number. Okay, let's try a small cage with very tiny numbers in the edges then. If I put 1 and 2 in the edges, that would be telling us that this cell has to add up to 6. 1 plus 2 is 3, times 2 is 6, so you put 6 in here. So in fact, you can't put much more than 6 in here. 1 plus 3 would be 8. 2 plus 3 would be too many, because 2 plus 3 would be 10. And you can't put 10 in here. Oh, so it's always, of course. Ah, right. Right, there is a mod 2 thing going on. Yeah, okay. Let's just let's generalize this a little bit and think about the edge cells in any of these cages. Now, the edge cells will always add up to a number. That's fairly self-evidently obvious. But then we're going to multiply that number by 2 to get the sum of the central cells. So that means whether these two cells add up to an odd number or an even number, when we've multiplied them by 2, the central cell has to add up to an even number, because these two are going to be 2x. If those two sum to x, then this is equal to 2x. And that's always going to be the case. So always the central sequence of digits in these cages adds up to an even number. Now, okay, we've got 3. Yeah, I think there are only 3 cages that seem to be 3 cells each. So each of these cages has an even number as its central digit, and we know that that's going to have to at least equal 6. So, and we know that the peripheral digits in these cages must include a 1, because we said it was either 1 and 2 or 1 and 3. So we actually get some pencil marks. Okay. So, what do we do next? That's the question. We've got some geometry going on in this 7-cell cage. Yeah, okay, that might be interesting. So let's abandon arithmetic for a moment and just think about geometry. where do those 3 cells go in box 5? So those 3 cells there, they can't repeat in the cage, and they can't repeat in column 5 either, because if that digit's a 6, it can't go in there, and it can't go in there. It would repeat in the cage if it goes in there. So these 3 squares must be the same as those 3 squares, which are therefore the same as those 3 squares. Now, this is interesting because this has now created roping down the central columns of the grid. What is roping, I hear you ask? Well, if you're new to the channel, you may not know, but basically, once you can prove this sort of arrangement, so once you get the same digits in 3 cells like this, 3 cells like this, 3 cells like this, that pattern must repeat. So now these 3 squares have to go in those 3 squares in box 5, and therefore those 3 squares in box 8. And these 3 squares will have to go in those 3 squares, will have to go in those 3 squares. So you can create these sort of Neapolitan ice cream type patterns the moment you can prove that one of those things occurs. So okay. So these 3 squares are selected from 1, 2, 3, 6 and 8, depending on, because these 3 squares are 1s, 2s, 3s, 6s and 8s. So let's look at that. Ooh, I'm just wondering if we've got something going on here. So there must be a 1 in those 3. There must be a 1 in these 3. No, you can, it's still it's clearly possible for there to be a 1 in this 7-cell cage, but if there is a 1 in the 7-cell cage, it must be here, because of the 1 that exists in one of these 2 cells seeing the other 6 cells in the cage. The other thing I can see is that there is a sort of virtual 45 cage there. So those cells add up to 45. They are an extra region in the puzzle. How do we know this? Well, look at this domino here. This domino, which I've flashed with yellow now. Well, these 2 cells can't go anywhere in the 7-cell cage because they see the entirety of the cage. This square sees the whole of the cells in box 5 with it, and sees the whole of the cells in column 5 with it. So these 2 cells sit outside this 7-cell cage, and therefore together this forms a 9-cell cage, which must therefore be the digits 1 to 9 once each. I feel like that's really close to being interesting. Perhaps not close enough. Bobbins. Can we do anything with the 7-cell cage down here then? We can. Let me just think about this. We have got another virtual. It's sort of a sideways letter H, isn't it? That's been reflected as well. But these 2 squares here, where do they go? Running out of colours here. Red. Should I use red or grey? I might use grey. These 2 squares here can't go in any of those 5 cells and can't go in these 2 cells. So they don't live in this 7-cell cage, and therefore they must be the other 2 digits, the digits from 1 to 9 that are not used in the 7-cell cage. So this is another virtual 9-cell cage. Right, and this this domino here, where does this domino go in box 8 of the grid? It's got to go in those 2 squares. And that's because this domino here can't repeat in the cage and can't go in those squares along row 9 because it's already in row 9. So we've got 2 of these 3 squares are purple. Ooh, now that square must go to that square. Yeah, this is interesting. This is interesting because if we look at this cell, we know it lives in one of those 3 cells, but we also know it can't repeat in its own cage, so it must be that one. So that's purple, and it's a 1, 2, or a 3. So what? Well, it's not a 1, because there's already a 1 in the blue skulls. So that... we get a digit. I've got a digit. That's a digit in the grid. Not bad after 15 minutes. So this square here isn't a 1, because of course once we know there's a 1 in there, this can't be a 1, therefore that can't be a 1, but we know this cage has a 1 in it, which must now be here. But I think we've also got, we've got a virtual 1, 2, 3 triple in box 9, because this, whether this is 2 or 3, it comes down there. So one of these 2 squares is purple and is a 2 or a 3. Well, combine it with the 2 cells in the 3 cell cage that are also selected from 1, 2 and 3, and these cells together make a 1, 2, 3 triple. There's also, there's a similar thing going on between those cells, isn't there? These cells together are the digits 1, well, they contain the digits 1, 2 and 3. That feels very close to being a breakthrough. So again, there's a 1, 2, 3 triple in column 4. And this is at the end of a cage. But that digit's not very restricted, I don't think. Okay. So how does this work? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure I've got any good ideas as to what to do. Do we know what this digit is somehow? Is there some reason that I can limit this digit? I know it's at the start of this cage. But I don't think I know more than that, do I? I know it's not a 1. In fact, I know it's not a 1, 2 or a 3, so it's a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. This is proper good live levels of pencil marking. So if this is a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or a 9, it has to add itself to this, which can't be a 1. So this is at least... Oh, yeah, okay, this is good. This is good. What can this digit be? Now, in particular, can this digit be a digit that's not a 1, 2 or a 3? Let's try and make this a 4, just for the sake of argument. Well, if this is a 4, it has to add itself to this, which is now going to be at least a 5. So the minimum I can make those 2 squares add up to is 9. But 4 plus 5 times 2, 9 times 2 is 18. I can't make those digits add up to 18, because that's just a domino. I can't double 9 it. So this square here must be a 2 or a 3, which means that I've now got a virtual 2, 3 pair in row 9. This square can't be a 2 or a 3, because whatever purple is in there, and that's a 2 or a 3, and this square we've just proved is a 2 or a 3. Now this square, if that's a 2, what's the biggest this can be? This can't be a 7. 2 plus 7 is 9 again, and that gives us a problem. So this square is 4, 5 or 6. So if this was 4, you'd have 2 plus 4 is 6. So these 2 squares have to add up to at least 12. Right, and we know we know from what we did earlier that the central cells in a cage are always adding to an even number. So this is 12, 14, or I suppose 16 might be possible if that's a 7-9 pair. So this domino either adds up to 12, 14, or 16. Which which is very interesting, but unfortunately I don't think I know which of those is correct. I know if it's 12 it can't be 3, 9 because there's a 3 in one of these two squares. So it could be 4, 8 or 5, 7. Sorry, I'm not quite appreciating that, I don't think. I keep coming back to this. Is there something I can do with this shape? This shape. Or those digits. Those digits. So 7 cells have to add up to at least 28. These two squares get multiplied by 2 and then added to... Sorry, yeah, there's a mod 3 thing going on. Yeah, those two squares... oh goodness me, Simon. So I was obsessed with mod 2 because I was looking at the 3 cell cages. But there's a mod 3, there's a general mod 3 point which is even more obvious. Because if we think about the nature of these cages, those two squares get multiplied by 2. So let's imagine these two squares add to x. So though we know that this sequence of digits here sums to 2x, because that's what the rules tell us. So if they are 2x and those two are x, the contents of the cage overall sum to 3x. Now that means that this is divisible by 3, which means these two squares are divisible by 3 because of the secret. Because of course 45 is exactly divisible by 3. So if that cage is divisible by 3, and it is because of the nature of the rules, this domino, which completes a virtual 45 cage, these two cells added together are exactly divisible by 3. I don't know if I can do anything with that. Those two have the same property as well. That's it, that's it. Right, I've gone round the houses here, but I have got there. These two squares. Right. For the reasons we've just explained, this domino is also divisible by 3 because this 7-cell cage is divisible by 3, and we know that together that whole thing is a virtual 45 cage, so this must be divisible by 3. But I said before, this is either 12, 14 or 16. Well, only one of those is divisible by 3. So this does add to 12. And that means those two squares must add up to 6. And the only way we can do that is we get more digits. That's a 2, that's a 4. That's a 3, that's a 3. There's a 3 in one of those. These two squares add up to 12, and they're not 3, 9 or 4, 8. So these are 5, 7. Sorry, I just got interrupted by a phone call, which doesn't happen very often. I'm very unpopular when it comes to phone calls, but I did just have to take one. So, right, where was I? It was just getting very exciting. I think I just got, was it the 5, 7 down here? Yes, we just got the 5, 7 down here. And that means that... Come on, Simon, get your head back in the game. What's going on? We have got... threes come out of this cage now. That must mean that we know what they are. So they are a 1, 2 pair. 1 and 2 sum to 3. Times it by 2, we get 6. So that's a 6. That's not a 6 anymore. In fact, look, we can't put... oh, no, simpler than that. There's a 3 in column 4 already. So these squares now... So, yeah, okay, so we can eliminate 3 from here as well. So this is now 1, 2 pair, again summing to 3, multiplied by 2, we get 6 again. So we've got 6 here, and that tells us the nature of the roping. we've now got 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 6. So let's just fill those in. See if that tells us anything more about the shape of the world. There's a 1 here. There's no 6 here. 2, 6. We need 8, 9 to finish off box 8. Yeah, okay. Now look at this 8, 9, because it's rather beautiful. 8, 9 can't repeat in the purple domino because it would repeat within the cage. So where does 8, 9 go in box 9? Only in those two cells. Yeah, and then we can just flip that logic round and ask where 5, 7 goes in box 9. Only in those cells. So these two squares are 3 and 4 to finish off to finish off box 9. But I'm now noticing that we know the entire... Yeah, if we know the entire collection of digits in one of these cages, we can mod 3 it. Lovely. So here we've got 17, 24, 24 and 9 is 33. Right. So if this cage adds to 33, we know that x for this cage is 11. 33 divided by 3 is 11. So those two squares must sum to 11. And the only way we can do that is with 8 here, 3 here, 4 here, 9 here. And 4 must be in one of those two cells by Sudoku, which we should probably investigate this cell at some point. Let me just see if I can see anything else. Not seeing anything at that. Yeah, I think that these two cells here are going to be important. I'm just wondering about the yellow domino as well. Why was this a yellow domino? This was a yellow domino because it was, oh yeah, we were creating the virtual 45 cage, weren't we? Right, okay, yeah, let's actually think about the yellow domino then. Because the yellow domino is mod 3 as well, isn't it? 0 mod 3, because we know those cells on mod 3, i.e. whatever this adds up to, when we divide it by 3 we will get an integer. Therefore, because together with this yellow domino we know that they sum to 45, which is also 0 mod 3, these two individually must sum up to a number that divides exactly by 3. Well, 6 and 2 do not, 6 and 1 do not, so this must be a 2-1 pair, I think. And we'd actually know the order of that, so I'm going to do that. 2, 1, 6 go into the grid. There must be a 1 in one of those 3 squares. Is that helpful? The answer is it might be. Yeah. Yes, it is actually. In fact, this puzzle is really beautiful. It just is really beautiful because now we can look at this cage. Because we now know this cage sums to 42, because it must sum to 45 less 1 plus 2. And if this cage sums to 42, what's x for this cage? Well, it's 14. 42 divided by 3 is 14. So those two squares sum to 14 without being 6. So they must be 5 and 9. And that's what we can resolve. There's a 9 here. So this is 9, this is 5, this is 5, this is 7. Those two squares are now known. They're a 3-8 pair. Those two squares are a 4-7 pair, I think. Whoops, not 4-8, 4-7. So these 3 squares are 4, 7 or 9. And these 3 squares are 3, 5 or 8. Which might be important. Do we know anything about this digit now? Surely that can't be a 4. Whenever I say surely, I always want to start quoting the Raven, which I shouldn't do, and my voice is on ration today, but I will still. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more. 1 plus 4 is 5. So if that was a 4, these 4 squares would have to sum to 10. and that's impossible because we can't use 1 in them, so that cannot be a 4. So if this is 7, these two sum to 8, so these would add to 16. That looks more achievable, doesn't it? Although still not easy. 16, so these 3 would have to sum to 14. I'm not immediately seeing a way that works. I can't see a way that works. Let's just see if we can make it work with 1 and 9 on the other hand. 1 and 9 would be 20. Well, 1 and 9 are 10, times 2 is 20, minus 2 is 18. So these 3 digits are summing to 18. I was about to say I can see how that can work, but I can't even see how that can work. I might have made a mess of this. I think I'm finding there's no actual solutions. 18 in those 3 squares. Oh no, you can do that. 7, 8 and 3 will work. Okay, so 1, 9 definitely works. I couldn't see a way of 1, 7 working. Oh, hang on, that digit, we know what that digit is. That's an 8. 1 plus 3 times 2 is most certainly 8. 8 comes out of there. So now there's an 8 in here. Does that affect our arithmetic at all? 1 plus 7, we'd be looking for 16. So we're looking for 14 here. We know one of the cells is an 8. So we need 6 more. Well, we can't do that. There is just no way this works. So this square here must be the 9. We must be looking to make these 3 squares therefore add up to 18, which is 20 minus the 2 here. And 18, given we know there's an 8 in, we then need the other 2 cells to add to 10, so there can never be a 5 because then you'd have to repeat the 5. So we must be looking at 3 and 7 along with 8. So this square here becomes a 7. That square there becomes a 4. That square there becomes a 5. And it's going to be interesting to see how the solution sort of makes its way out of the central 3 columns here, because we've done a lot of work on the middle 3 columns, but very little in the periphery of the grid. Let me just have a think about this. What about... I want to look at this square. I feel like this square is weak. So we have a 5-7 pair and a 3-8-9 triple. So we need 1s, 2s, 4s and 6s over here. These can't have a 2 in them. So 1, 4 and 6. This square surely can't be a 1. I'm not going to do the raven again. 1 plus 3 is 4. These would have to sum to 8. No, we can't repeat. 8 in 3 cells would need a 1 in it. And we've just said the starting point for this was putting a 1 there, so that's not 1. So this is 4 or 6. So if it's 4, these have to add up to 14. Sort of feel like that's probably very easy, although I'm now noticing I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple in row 8. So these, maybe we should pencil mark these squares as well. 5s, 7s, 8s and 9s. So if this was adding to 14, you'd have to go 1, 5, 8. That's the only way you could do it. And if that's 6, then 6 plus 3 is 9, 18 here. Oh. 6, 18. Why can't I do... Oh, I can't do 1, 8, 9, interestingly. That will break that cell. So if that's 6, this has to be a 4. But that could be 5, 9. Bother. So I think both options work for this cell, which is not what I was hoping to find at all. Oh, that can't be an 8. That's not, unfortunately, going to resolve anything. This pentomino looks like a useless one. Oh, yeah, this cell was the other cell I wanted to look at, wasn't it? Because the other side of this is a large digit, and that cell actually can't be 1 or 2. So this is a minimum of 3. Which means that the minimum total... yeah, this in fact is a 3. Now, why is this a 3? Let's try a higher digit and see why. If this is any higher than 3, these two squares together now are adding up to at least 12. 12 times 2 is 24, which would be a maximum for these three squares with 7, 8 and 9. But this has to be an 8 or a 9, and therefore there would be no fill for this square if you put 7, 8, 9 in there. Ergo, this is not a 4, that's a 3. That gets us a 3 and an 8. It's a clever puzzle, eh? It really is. So now, now this is, yeah, for exactly the same reason. This can't be a 9. 3 plus 9 is 12. You can't make those at 27, 8, 9 triple. That's going to break this square. So that's got to be 8. 3 plus 8 is 11. Times 2 is 22. These are adding up to 22. You can see that's a 9. So this can't be 5 and 8. That would repeat the 8. So it must be 7 and 6. And that must be 4. So that gives us a 5 here. 3 is locked into one of those two squares by Sudoku. Not done too much Sudoku yet. I don't mind that. 8's got to go into one of these squares. 6 has got to go into one of those squares. Okay. We might be running out of gas with this logic, I think. 9 comes out of those cells. Does that affect the ability of this square to be whatever we said it had to be? 6. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? If that's a 6, we said you had to go 4, 5, 9 in order to make 18. Now you can't, there's a 9 here. So this can't be a 6, that's got to be a 4. Which means these three squares now are adding up to 14. There's no way of making those two squares add up to 8, so this square here must be a 1. That gets us the 1 and the 2 over here, and the 6 here, and the 2 and the 1 over there. These squares add up to 13. There's only one way that will work. 8 here, 5 here. That becomes a 7. And we are suddenly cooking with some gas. That's 8. These two squares are something. 6 and 9. Okay. Okay, so which side do we look at next? It's either going to be Sudoku or it's going to be this tetromino or this pentomino that are going to give us some joy. 1, look, has to be in one of those three cells. It's not clear to me which is the natural place to look here. That digit has to be at least 4. So that digit is 4, 6. Oh, it's not 6. In fact, this digit might be the place to look because it seems to have not that many options. 4, 7 or 9, I think. Can't see anything else that works here. So this square is 1, 3 or 5. Or obviously 8 or 9, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, this can't work, can it? If that's 7, oh, it can. You can nearly make it work with 7, but it still doesn't work. Right, I think this square here has to be a 4, because if it's as much as 7, the minimum this digit could be is 1, which means together these add to 8, which means these have to be equal to 16 or more. Well, if there's a 7 here, you can't make these 16 or more, so that's not going to work. If you make this 3, we've got to ludicrous proportions for this domino because you've got to make it add up to 10. If you make this 9, which I think was its other option, again, you've got to make that add up to 20. That's not going to work. So this square here is a 4, which actually gives us another digit in the middle box. Let's just pencil mark these squares in and see if we can. So that's 5s, 6s, and 9s. That square's not 6. Okay, and now let's think about this square and see if we can resolve some more things. So, if this is a 1, it's not a 1, that's lovely. If it's a 1, there's no fill for this, which has to add up to 10. You can't use 5 because you'd have to repeat the 5. And if you go with a 9, you've got to have a 1 here, which will double the 1 up. So that's not 1. I don't believe this can possibly be 5. No, it can't. 5 plus 4 requires this to be 18. That's not going to work. So this is 3. That's 3. That's 8. These add up to 7. So this is a 14 domino. and that's a 5 or a 9, so that is also a 5 or a 9. That shifts 8 in the box to here, 1 in the box to here. These squares are a 2-7 pair, which we can do. Wow. And those squares are going to have to be a 1-8 pair, which we can't do. And these squares are 2, 4 and 5, which we can do the top right hand cell of the grid. And these squares are something else, 6, 7s and 9s. So that's a 7 by Sudoku, and that's going to be a 6-9 pair. Okay, come on voice, last out, we're doing well. We have nearly finished, probably. And I say that because I think we've only got this one to do, and then it should be ordinary Sudoku, and you know how good I am at that. 2, 5, 7s and 9s over here. So that cell can only be 7 or 9. Squares 2, 5 or 9. But these two squares are now, well, they're 3 or 4, aren't they? Which feels like it's important to know. So the pressure is going to be on this digit. But unfortunately, oh, the 2 here might be useful. That gets rid of the 2, 1, 1, 8. So 8 must go in exactly that cell, and the 1 must go in exactly this cell. Oh yeah, lovely, okay. So now, yeah, we can see this is incredibly constrained. You can't put 3 here, because 3 plus 1 is 4. These would have to sum to 8. We'd immediately know they needed to have a 1 in them, which they can't have. So that's 4, and it's still going to be difficult actually. This has to add up to 10. So we have to minimize everything. 2, 5, 3 is adding up to 10. So 2, 5, 3 go in. 5 and 9 go in on the other side of the grid. That squares a 6 now. This is a 7, 9 pair, which doesn't look like it is resolved. That's a 6, that's a 9. Now it's resolved. 9 and 7 go into the grid. 9 goes at the very top. That gets us that one, that one. These squares here are 4, 6 and 7. 7 must be at the top, 6 must be here, 4 must be here, 4 and 5 go in, 5 must be here. This is a 2, 3 pair, and there we go. What a beautiful puzzle that is. There's some lovely, lovely ideas in this that get you started. So it starts off with the roping, which is not too difficult to see. And then, what did we need to do? We needed to understand some of the qualities of the dominoes in the puzzle. Like, we needed to understand the importance of the relationship between these digits, or this digit and this digit, I think, in order to create some 1s, 2s and 3 virtual triples. Yeah, we did need that because we needed to understand that this had to be at least 12 and that this was even. And then once it kicks into your brain that you were looking at mod 3 and the cages, which admittedly it didn't kick into my brain for some time, but once that kicks in, this domino is resolved and that gets the whole puzzle flowing. It's really, really clever stuff. It's a lovely idea. A great tribute to Anne-Marie. I hope that she's a Sudoku fan. Wouldn't it be amazing if she watched this video? We shall see, but I did enjoy it. I hope you did too. Let me know in the comments, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.